Check Podcasts. Hi, I'm Bruce Williams. I'm the CEO of the Greater Victoria Chamber of Commerce, and this is Chamber Chats. This is something that we do, of course, in the ancestral territories of the Lekwungen-speaking Coast Salish nations. It's our privilege and our honor to live and work alongside them every day. Chamber Chats is made possible by the support of Island Savings, a division of First West Credit Union. And usually, despite I could be pretty much anywhere in the world when you look at this, we are not in the studios of Czech television quite yet, but we will be back there eventually. One of the things that people have been saying all the way through the pandemic is, man, I can't wait to get back. I want to see a concert. I want to hear music. I want to see dance. I want to be at a theater. I want to do all that stuff. Well, we're getting there. We're going to talk about that today, and we're going to talk about the overall impact of the pandemic on our arts and culture scene here in Greater Victoria. Joining us to talk about that, Janyce Ronson is the acting director of the Art Gallery of Greater Victoria. Hi, Janyce. Nice to see you. Kegan McFadden is the executive director of the Victoria Arts Council. Kegan, how are you?
Doing great, Bruce. Thanks for it.
Great. And Ian Rye is the CEO of Pacific Opera Victoria. Nice to see you, Ian. How are you?
I'm well, Bruce. Thanks for the invitation.
Good. So we're going to cover a lot of ground here in sort of a large part of the spectrum of the arts community. But Kegan, I want to start with you. The Art Gallery, self-explanatory. Pacific Opera, self-explanatory. But the Arts Council, what's the Arts Council, Kegan? What do you guys do?
Yeah, a lot of your listeners and watchers might remember the Community Arts Council of Greater Victoria, which is how we were founded in 1968. Of course, a lot has happened since then, including a name change to the Victoria Arts Council, less of a mouthful. But our main focus is really to connect artists with audiences in all kinds of ways. So we have 4 major programs that we do that through, including a slew of visual art galleries. So I'm coming to you from our main gallery in Old Town. And then we have a number of community satellite galleries at the airport and in the libraries. We also produce a monthly lecture series and a quarterly magazine. So we try to support artists at all turns in the community here.
So we're going to talk about the impact on this entire community in just a second here. But Janyce, I'm going to go to you. Art Gallery Greater Victoria. Pretty obvious, but how would you describe the organization and the facility to a stranger?
Well, we're a public art gallery. We are probably about 70 years old, have existed in this city for that long in various locations, but in this one since I think about 57. And we have a double responsibility. We have the need to provide collection, to grow collection. So we work with donors who have artworks that they choose to make a contribution to the gallery, but we also work with contemporary artists, people that Kegan works with, and we show and collect their works as well. But we provide programming and we provide a space for people to come and just be with visual art.
Yeah, and you have a permanent collection, but you also have traveling exhibits that come through too, right?
That's right. And we have traveling exhibits that come in, and we have traveling exhibits that go out. We have both.
Okay, we'll come back to that. And Ian Rye, CEO Pacific Opera Victoria. You know, I've said in other sessions with you that if someone feels that they have nothing in common with opera, it means they've never been to one. They've never seen it. It's an amazing experience. But tell us basically about what you guys do.
Well, we pride ourselves in being one of those influential Canadian opera companies. We create original productions of classic works, contemporary opera, and we produce the large-scale operas at the Royal Theatre. We produce smaller-scale works at our own home at the Bauman Center. And our Made in Victoria productions travel all around North America every year to opera houses throughout the continent. So a meaningful place for art making and artists, and indeed engaging with audiences locally and nationally.
So I'm going to stick with you for a minute. I have to think over the last 2 years, that whole traveling thing has not really happened a whole lot, but it's coming back again. So tell me, what were the sort of changes, the pivots you had to make a couple of years ago when this all began?
Well, what we've seen for the duration of the last 4 waves of the pandemic is our large venues have been shuttered. And large gatherings of individuals, such as those at an opera house, have not been allowed to gather. So as an art form, we had to get really, really small, really quickly, and started producing entirely out of our own studio and producing for film, for podcast, for digital environments. And meanwhile, our production artists started building productions for the future. So we maintain a number of shops and scenic artisans and costume and prop artisans, and they've been building into the future so that we have productions ready for audiences in Greater Victoria, but as well as for our traveling work in the years to come.
Kegan, the people that are under the umbrella of your organization, all the various moving parts in the organizations have seen a drastic change since the beginning. So tell me about some of the pivots that these folks had to do.
Yeah, well, going back, way back to the first 100 days of closures back in 2020, we obviously didn't have a space to welcome our audiences to or to promote our audiences through. So what we actually did was we started a magazine, a digital magazine that we called Until, which is sort of a play on this old idea, until we meet again. And it took off like wildfire, Bruce, and it was wildly successful. I guess I shouldn't joke about wildfire in BC. It gained a lot of traction very quickly, I'll say that. So over those 100 days, we produced 6 issues and actually facilitated the promotion and the payment to 100 artists. So we were very, proud about that fact. Giving people. We had very funny little themes that we were exploring in each issue. So just giving artists those prompts, and then they would send us a collage, a story, a song sometimes. And because it was a digital magazine, we were able to embed videos. So we've even had performances. So it was quite nice. And we took a pause and recalibrated that. And now it's a quarterly magazine, which is a much more, easy speed to work at. But we still managed to work with about 100 artists a year through that initiative.
Great. And that's on your website, I assume. That's where we find it?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So, Janyce, obviously you had to close the doors of the art gallery at the very beginning, but good for Victoria and good for you. You were one of the first venues, I believe in Canada, you said, to reopen, right?
In BC. In
BC. Okay.
That's right. Yeah. We, I think what we started to do when we first closed is we started to plan for opening. We knew we'd be open again. We started to look at what did we need to do to the physical location, to the physical building, to make people feel comfortable in the space. So I think we bought acrylic sheets and tape and all of those kinds of things. We looked at occupancy. But the other part of what we did is we took care of staff as best we could to make sure that staff could continue to operate and provide programming. And then like Kegan and like Ian, we took a look at our digital involvement through social media and we said we have to shift from promotion to programming, and we started to take a look at what did that mean, and then reached out to our wider community and participated in a program called Field Camp. Field trip, wasn't it? Field trip.
Field trip. There it is. Teamwork. Nice.
Base camp and field trip.
Right.
Okay.
And it was a wonderful experience. We came on one of the original 6, if you will, and started to get involved and upload programming that we would have normally had in person. It was a wonderful experience.
Cool. Okay.
And
continues to be, yes, for sure. Business of any kind, be it cultural or something else, revenue was impacted through the pandemic. We want to talk about that next. Our chamber chat today is all about the arts and culture scene in Greater Victoria. My guests are Janyce Ronson, who's the acting director of the Art Gallery of Greater Victoria. Kegan McFadden is the executive director of the Victoria Arts Council. And Ian Rye is the CEO of Pacific Opera Victoria. So Janyce, I'm going to start off with you again here. So you were able to reopen the first facility in BC to do so. You still must have taken a financial hit because you didn't have people coming in, right?
Absolutely. I think we were down by 70% in admissions. But we realized that we had to continue to operate because people still expected us to be there. And when we opened up, it doesn't matter whether 5 people come through or 105 people come through. We're the same institution. So what really helped us, and this isn't any surprise, is the federal wage subsidies. And some relief from BC Arts Council and from Canada Council for the Arts. They recognized early on that we needed that support. And without it, we couldn't have kept our staff going. we also recognize, like Kegan, that artists are really hit with this. So one of the big things that, as you know, that we operate for the city is the paint-in, the art gallery paint-in, sponsored by TD. And of course that couldn't happen. And that meant 150 odd artists were not able to receive any kind of revenue from that event. And so we tried to work with them to be able to promote artists to our community in a different way.
The Moss Street Paint-In, one of the great events of this. It's going to happen this year, right?
It is going to happen this year. We're going to call it the Art Gallery Paint-In, though, Bruce, just to remind you. Yeah, on Moss Street, Art Gallery Paint-In.
Yeah, well, you start or end at the Art Gallery, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Very
we're
happy to see that.
to be able to offer it.
Yeah, financial side, Kegan, for you, I mean, your operation and all the other organizations with whom you work, tell me about what kind of a hit you saw happening there.
Yeah, well, we were not able to produce our major fundraiser, which is called the Look Show. It's very similar to the Paint-In, and that's now 2 years running that we haven't been able to do that show. The last time we produced it in 2019, we had over 200 artists and 1,000 people came to the opening. Just something you can't do these days, at least not yet. So as Janyce had signaled, the BC Arts Council really did come through with what they called resiliency funding. And they were essentially a funnel for provincial funds to get down to the grassroots organizations to keep us sustained. We also have very generous membership. And so just a few sort of direct campaigns resulted in a big impact for us. We're lucky. We have a very lean budget, and we just got a little bit leaner, but because of that, we're still around.
And Ian, you're right now at the Bauman Center, which is where your sort of headquarters is for things. So you're doing things there, you mentioned, but nothing in the Royal Theatre, nobody going on the road, nobody traveling. Tell me about the revenue and financial impact on Pacific Opera Victoria.
Yeah, so our ticket revenues and subscription revenues were down by 100%. Again, fortunately, federal and provincial programs helped to make up the difference, but I'll quite frankly say the philanthropic community stepped in a big way. It has been, we've seen amazing stories in the arts, but also in healthcare and homelessness and everything else. The philanthropic community in this city continues to, quite frankly, lead the province and lead the country. And I know all of our organizations benefited from the stability and the increased investment from the philanthropic community. So what we originally projected as a budget that was 50% of our usual, we were able to kind of restore about another 25% of that with the support of the philanthropic community and get some money out the door into artists' pockets and provide what we could to audiences through our media channels.
You know, at the best of times, the organizations that we're talking about here with the three of you are all a part of us finding balance in our lives, finding a distraction, finding pleasure, seeing, hearing, touching things that are going to balance our mental health. And we haven't had any of that. So I just want to know, Kegan, from your people that are involved with your organization throughout all of this, what did you hear about that? I mean, I said at the top, everybody's just dying to get out and do something. Yeah. But what impact did the lack of arts and culture activity have on your stakeholders?
It was major, for a lot of our membership. They just sort of felt at loose ends, like so many of us in general throughout the last couple of years. But without a platform for an artist to really show what she's working on, it becomes, really isolating very quickly. So, different platforms such as the Until magazine or Creative Mornings, which is a lecture series that we brought on under our umbrella last year. These are ways that we can facilitate those conversations and give people the space they need to either feel recognized and then therefore more healthy, or to kind of engage in other questions around that.
Ian, people go to opera to be exhilarated. They go to opera to weep openly, to respond viscerally to the music. That's a big part of our mental health balance. We didn't have that. So what, again, did you hear from your stakeholders, your clients, your customers, your attendees?
Well, interesting enough, right? The art form and many art forms are available, online, but we all know that a big motivation and a big reason we participate in arts activities is to spend time in person with friends, with family, with community, and to experience a collective a collective experience. So one cannot duplicate that online. No amount of Zoom breakout rooms and virtual receptions can replace that. So as a community, we've all suffered, as so many communities have, from the lack of opportunity to experience something together. So I look forward to reconvening. The reality is that our stakeholders absolutely want to be back in the theaters and engaging with the artists, and our artists don't perform without that direct and immediate feedback. So the reality is we need to bring those two pieces of the art form back together again.
Janyce, when the gallery reopened, Amanda and I were thrilled. Amanda, my partner, Amanda, we're art nerds. When we go on holiday, we go to galleries. That's what we do. And Amanda is a painter. We have a house full of stuff. But we were able to go and get lost in the artwork. That's the beauty of a piece of art. It doesn't matter what it looks like and who did it. You get absorbed by it. That's where you can sort of lose your place and just get caught up in that moment. But boy, that's been a real balance for people, I think, hasn't it?
Oh, that's what we get told all the time, Bruce. I'm glad you both had that experience. I think that's what we felt an obligation to open up, because there weren't many places. And today's no different. We may be opened up, but there's lots of heavy stuff happening, and people want a place for a moment of reflection and respite. And what we did is we shifted our sort of admission model slightly. So we closed Thursday mornings to allow people to travel in their bubble. They knew that they could bring their family, their kids, their grandparents, and just have a small group of people to have that completely relaxed experience within the gallery. And then the other thing we did was then Thursday evenings, we opened it by donation. We just said, you know what, come to the art gallery, feel comfortable. We didn't have a lot of people in at a time, but when you got in, exactly right, you could just forget about all around you and just enjoy what you were seeing.
Yeah. Place yourself in the painting or the photograph or whatever it might be and just get lost in it. Okay, we want to talk next, though, about how are we doing in general compared to the rest of the province, the rest of the country, and the rest of the world. On Chamber Chats today, we're talking about the arts and culture scene in South Vancouver Island and in Greater Victoria. Our guests today are Janyce Ronson, who is the acting director of the Art Gallery of Greater Victoria. Kegan McFadden is the executive director of the Victoria Arts Council. And Ian Rye, CEO of Pacific Opera Victoria. Ian, how are you doing compared to other opera companies around the country and around the world?
Quite frankly, we're strong, but we are significantly delayed. We have seen many of our American and certainly our European colleagues have been back performing since last fall and often last summer. However, the prudence that British Columbia has taken with managing this virus is quite frankly something I think we can all be proud of. And so it's a small price to pay that we are a late bloomer in reopening opera on the West Coast. Frankly, our colleagues in Europe in particular have been opening and closing so many times that the burnout rate for artists and arts administrators is extraordinary. And then the most recent events in Ukraine, which are hitting the opera world significantly, are an added burden to what has been a really rocking time. So again, in British Columbia, we've taken it slow, we've taken it steady, and we're stronger for it.
Janyce, galleries around the world, around the province, around the country, how are you doing compared to them? And what are you hearing from them?
We've been really, in many ways, blessed by the actions that were taken by the province. We didn't have to open and close. And a lot of particularly our sister organizations in Ontario, had a very difficult time. But also in relation to other art galleries in the province, we're not quite as lean as the Victoria Arts Council, perhaps, but we're pretty lean, and we were able to keep everybody in place and on staff. And that meant people could continue to produce and think and vision and do all of those kinds of things while things were a little slow.
Right. And Kegan, similar organizations to yours across the country, around the world. What are you hearing? What have they got to say through this?
In Winnipeg, where I just was last month, visiting some family, you still have to do the passport check and what is it called? Contact tracing. Everywhere. If you can even get in, sometimes it's still by appointment only. We've never actually been by appointment here, luckily, just again with the way things have been managed provincially. And then, further across the prairies, I think it's still really struggling, and Ontario is its own trouble. Likewise with Quebec. So I'm really happy that we've been able to say that we have been open, without closing since June of 2020. And we've been doing regular exhibitions. We've been paying artists, supporting our community that way.
Ian, Pacific Opera Victoria, Don Giovanni and Alice in Wonderland. Tell me what's coming up.
Indeed. Also a new film that we filmed last year called For a Look or a Touch. So a spectacular work beginning April 20th. Don Giovanni, For a Look or Touch. This will be our return to the Royal Theatre and large-scale opera. Looking forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, Mozart's Don Giovanni is what that is, by the way. Janyce, what's in the gallery and what's coming in?
Okay, so early April, 2nd of April, I think, we'll be opening an exhibition called Reverberations, which is a combination of contemporary artists who will be reverberating or echoing from pieces from our collection. Very exciting, including the Chinese Art Society, who've taken some of our Asian work and will be working with it. Then later in June, we'll be opening our first exhibition by our new chief curator, Jamie Isaac, called Adorned. And I'm not going to say anything more. You'll be amazed by it. And then in the summer, we'll be showing Maud Lewis, who will be visiting us as part of a trip from the East Coast to the West Coast. And we're excited to be able to offer people from this coast Maud Lewis.
Cool. East Coast to the best coast. And real fast, Kegan, what can we look for with the Arts Council?
Well, currently we have on an exhibition that runs until May 22nd, and it's a national touring exhibition of contemporary quilt and fiber art. So there's 48 artists in the show, a number from BC and even some from Victoria, which is nice. But this is the show is called Crossroads, and it is the only, or Victoria Arts Council is the only host of it in the province. So after this, it goes back to Saskatchewan.
Kegan McFadden, Executive Director, Victoria Arts Council, Ian Rye, CEO, Pacific Opera Victoria, and Janyce Ronson, Acting Director of the Art Gallery of Greater Victoria. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for all you do. And we look forward to getting things back to something like they were before. Thanks for being here with us today. And I'm Bruce Williams, and that's it for today. We'll see you soon for another Chamber Chat.